Your book was about dragons. They are not real. What did you learn? She says it exactly like that. I kid you not. And I love that the reader community has turned this into a sound to talk about fantasy books on TikTok. Happy Valentine's and Galentine's. I'll get my Galentine for you. Hold on. Oh, this was more effort than it was worth. Baby, look at the camera. You have to love me. This is supposed to be a Valentine's video. There has been a video going around on TikTok of this girl's hot take about people who have reading goals. Listen, I know that there's like a really strong chance that this is just rage bait and this was for clicks and engagement on her account. But if it was rage bait, it was successful rage. I'm not going to show it here. She has received, in my opinion, plenty of feedback from the reader community, and in response to said feedback, she has double, triple, and quadrupled down on her original point, no matter how wrong they are. The main gist of the video kind of comes down to 3 different points that I would love to discuss and hear your opinions on. I feel like we're gonna agree, but just be with me in this frustration. First, that books rooted in reality are better than fiction books, and that you are not actually bettering yourself as a person if you're reading fiction. Second is that you can only learn new stuff from entertainment rooted in reality. And then she essentially tries to make it sound like it's dumb to have reading goals, and she says that having reading goals and talking about them on the internet is a superiority complex. Few things. First, the whole you're not actually bettering yourself by reading fiction thing. Reading anything does make you better. Not better than other people, but a better person. Readers tend to have a higher capacity for empathy because as part of the reading journey, you put on the shoes of so many people who are not yourself, that it makes it easier to view other people in your own life complexly as their own main character. That's an idea that kind of originated in the Vlogbrothers community of like viewing other people complexly. That's what their whole company is based on now, and I love that premise, and I feel like readers are exceptionally good at that. Also, a decade ago, I took the SATs. I test pretty well, but I am not strong in math. And so I took the SAT. I was happy with my reading score. I wanted to try to go for a higher math score. I kid you not. I studied only math, like just did math practice tests, all the stuff for months leading up to this second version of the SAT that I was going to take. During that time, that was also when I was obsessively reading. I read a lot as an adult, but not the way that I did as a high school. I just had more time, I guess. I don't know. But I was probably going through 2 books a week minimum at that point. I was also almost exclusively reading dystopian and fantasy. I went to take that second SAT, the reading English section. I went up 50 points without studying. All I'd really been doing outside of my schoolwork was reading all the time. And my math score went up 10. Aside from the point that I just kind of am bad at math, going up that much in a reading score without studying at all, I feel like kind of speaks for itself as to how helpful it is to be reading any type of book, whether you do nonfiction or fiction, or at times fan fiction. Now, on to the next point. The point was made that it's fine to read as a hobby, but why have goals? It's not like going to the gym. Babes, the gym is a hobby too. And I feel like, of course, you keep track of like reps and how much weight you're doing at the gym so you can see how you've grown like in your strength. I feel like it only makes sense to keep track of your books. There is such a strong sense of accomplishment at reaching a physical goal as well as a reading one. And then the point that it gives readers a superiority complex. And you will find that in every hobby, I fear. I feel like it doesn't really matter what you do. There are always going to be people who are going to lord it over people, what they've been able to accomplish, if that makes sense. A vast majority of people who engage in a hobby are not like that. But you will find people everywhere who will do whatever it takes to feel like they're better than the other people around them, even if it's just for a hobby, in which case they're really missing the community aspect of a hobby, which I think is the only way you can really lose at reading, is if you don't engage with the other readers. Which brings me to my next point, is that she was sort of talking down on book clubs and people who get together to talk about fictional people. She made it sound like it is very stupid when, in my opinion, connecting with other people in any capacity is healthy and important, especially in a world that is very, very much online. There's the conversation online about how we have lost third spaces as a society, and so I feel like in any way you create that third space, you're doing good. And talking about fictional characters is fun. The video also said it's not like we do that for movies. The Oscars, the Golden Globes, National Film Awards, Sundance. Anyways, I would like to take on the challenge and go through some nonfiction books that I have read or are extremely popular nonfiction and talk about their themes and lessons and see if we can't find the exact same thing inside some of these fiction books that are about dragons that are not real. First, let's cover the business books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and Lean Marketing. These are books that I read to get better at my own job and to continue building my own side business. And a lot of the time that I go into books like this, I feel like I am honestly looking for a productivity hack that will make it possible for me not to sleep anymore. Because a lot of time I feel like if only I had more hours, I would be able to get more done, basically. And I feel like what surprised me the most about both of these books is the emphasis on relationships with other people, which is a theme that comes up in my favorite series of all time, the Throne of Glass series, specifically the last book, Kingdom of Ash. This isn't like a spoiler if you haven't read it, but there's a theme that really builds throughout the course of the books that is perfectly mirrored in these real-life business books. And that is, if you want to build an empire that is going to succeed, whether that's a business or a literal country, you need to invest in good people who are willing to help you because you cannot do it alone. And I also think there is something to be said about the age at which people are more willing to read nonfiction, because I read the Throne of Glass series first. I read Kingdom of Ash years ago, way before I'd even think about picking up a business book. So I feel like I was able to learn that lesson earlier. And I feel like in general, the earlier you can learn a lesson, the better. And so if I learned that through fiction as opposed to a business book, then why does that matter? Everyone's favorite, Atomic Habits. I feel like I've read enough quotes and bits and pieces of this book to have a very good grasp of what's going on in there. I want to read the whole thing eventually, but haven't gotten there yet. However, the themes that I know are in that book from hearing from other people very closely mirrors A Court of Silver Flames. And that's that creating healthy habits and sticking to them and being able to connect one habit to another is going to lead you to a fuller life and more of a purpose to your work and your life. In A Court of Silver Flames, we really see a character start out at their lowest point and have to kind of combat with this idea of becoming a more disciplined person. There's a lot more themes in A Court of Silver Flames, but I feel like that is one that really stuck out to me the most, is that forming new habits really starts with just one decision and then making that decision again and again and again. And I feel like that's very similar to what Atomic Habits offers its readers. This one I unfortunately got from National Treasure because I'm going to be honest, as much as I like history class, I don't really love reading historical documents. But if we're going to move away from the business and self-help, I feel that history is up next. Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence! You stole it! Now you dragged me into it. The idea here is that if the government stops protecting the rights of the people, that it is up to them to overthrow that government and replace it. This is a core theme in Harry Potter, The Resistance Against Voldemort, Mistborn, where they are overthrowing oppressive rulers, and Fourth Wing, the book that I do believe the girl in the original video was referring to, where they're fighting corruption within their leadership. Another one that's on my TBR is The Power of Now, versus themes in the Infernal Devices and honestly the Mortal Instruments and The Last Hours and The Dark Artifices. It's in, I feel like, all of Cassandra Clare's work. But the themes in both of them is that your mind can truly become your worst enemy. And if you live in a sense of like the past in pain and regret, you are incapable of moving forward, and it just perpetuates in a circle in your brain. Most of Cassandra Clare's characters have some sort of experience along these lines that they have to figure out how to forgive themselves for whatever it is that they feel is the reason that they're not a good person. Still to this day, but especially in ancient cultures, we're sort of used to preserve information, a way to keep their own histories alive and teach moral truths, which is its own form of learning, which is why fiction is usually an important vehicle for people to discuss important themes. That's true for classic literature, nonfiction literature, and modern fiction. Themes like prejudice, classism, and even the dangers of humanity trying to sort of take on an immortal god-like role. And I'll tell you one thing, it's a lot easier to learn anything through books of fiction than it is to learn through the books that were suggested to us in the original video. Books like How to Build an Engine, How to Speak Chinese, or better, the dictionary. That's why I thought this might be like purely rage bait, because I was like, if your suggested reading is the dictionary, listen, I would fall asleep in a second if I was trying to read the dictionary. And I know, at least for me, reading fiction has helped me build a better vocabulary, no matter how long I thought the word facade was pronounced facade. And I think there's sort of a safety that people find in fiction that helps you sort of process your own thoughts and, you know, what other people are going through in a more safe environment, if that makes sense. We see a lot of PTSD and anxiety in the ACOTAR series, grief in Crescent City, and even physical ailments like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in the Fourth Wing series. I didn't even know what that was before reading the series, and I feel like that's true of a lot of people. And at the very least, reading fiction helps preserve somewhat of an attention span in this day of social media, where it feels like my attention span is sometimes that of a goldfish. And thus I rest my case. I think nonfiction books and seeking knowledge just for the sake of it is important, but this hot take, it just rubbed me such the wrong way. And I felt that I needed a place to dump all of my thoughts on the topic somewhere. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, especially what lessons and stuff you feel like you learned in fiction or specific books that really changed your perspective on things. I know that I'm biased, but I really do feel like reading, no matter what you decide to read, is one of the best things you can do for your brain, especially as a hobby, and especially when, for a lot of us, the alternative would just be doom scrolling. I just started my first Elsie Silver book. I'm reading Powerless, and more often I find myself closing out of TikTok and the endless stream of information that is on there right now, and it can really put you in a weird headspace, and I find myself closing out of that to go read Powerless, and I think there's something very helpful there. You can call it escapism if you like, but I do think for a lot of people it's a healthy thing to prefer to read a book than sit in the kind of thrashing emotional experience that is social media. I can genuinely go from crying watching somebody in extreme pain, telling a really intense story about what's happened to them, and then in the next swipe I'm laughing at dog videos, and I just don't know the effect that has on one's psyche. So that's my rant. Happy Valentine's. Please like this video if you liked it. Click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. Let me know your thoughts about the whole situation. My name's Caitlin. Thanks for watching. Bye.